when I wanted to see Stomp and you wanted to see Wicked, what did we see?
We saw...
This video is not about Dinner Party. Let me explain. Dinner Party is probably the best episode of The Office. So great, in fact, Rolling Stone even did a multi-page oral history of the episode a few years back. But I've talked about Dinner Party before, and I think so has the rest of the internet. I actually believe that there's another episode that is nearly just as perfect as Dinner Party. One that I think suits this perfect episode series I have going perfectly, and one that puts on display everything that makes The Office exceptional. The injury.
Today, I got up, I stepped onto the grill, and it clamped down on my foot. That's it. I don't see what's so hard to believe about that.
I think every great Office episode starts with premise, the situation. The Office has a habit of relying on character to drive narrative, and it works almost all of the time. But I think the best episodes are driven more situationally. The lead writer on The Injury was Mindy Kaling. Yep, Kelly Kapoor. And this is one of her best episodes. She as a writer poses a simple question. What is the stupidest, but most true to character thing Michael and Dwight could do to injure themselves? Michael? Well, turns on the George Foreman on the floor next to his bed so he can wake up to the smell of crackling bacon, and...
I burned my foot!
Dwight does this on his way to pick up Michael and bring him to work. What smart sitcom writing does is challenge its characters as much as possible, and simultaneously challenge our opinion of them equally so. How many terrible situations can you put Michael on crutches in? How far can you push that character until you end up here? What about Dwight? How can you challenge the viewer's opinion of him? How can you realistically show people a new side to a very well-defined character?
Wake up!
Dinner Party gives us a look at Michael's home life and his relationship like we had never seen. It exposes new pieces of Michael's life and, importantly, his mental state. And that last part is, I think, actually a key element of great Office episodes and The Injury as well.
No one is helping me out at all, Mom. No, I'm not gonna call Jan. She'd just worry.
Weirdly enough, I think what a lot of the show's best episodes have in common is the undressing of Michael Scott, how they expose his character. The Injury is kind of a hilarious exploration of Michael's insecurities, his need and desire for attention. He wants people to know he's hurt. He over-dramatizes his injury. He forces Ryan to wait on him hand and foot. He even tries to conflate being disabled and having a George Foreman grill foot burn.
Do you know what it's like to be disabled?
Why does he do all of this? Insecurity. The entire episode is Michael searching, practically begging for compassion. He knows he isn't dying. It's an exploration of that insecurity. He thinks the injury is an opportunity for people to show they care about him, for him to see who does or does not care about him. We see Michael begin to question his place in the office and these people's lives, see him scared and hurt when no one seems to stop their own world from turning for his foot. It's kind of sad, but the reason this makes for such a great episode is that moments like these ground and humanize Michael. They make him especially vulnerable. And in episodes like The Injury, you remember that Michael isn't a walking cartoon character. He's a human being, not just a clown. And that vulnerability makes moments, like Michael agreeing to go into the hospital with Dwight and be by his side, feel a bit more organic. Those moments have a better payoff when you see Michael as a human with real emotion throughout all 23 minutes of the episode. Whereas Dinner Party slowly breaks down Michael's facade, I think The Injury skips right to the good stuff. And, well, speaking of Dwight...
Dad?
What I think The Injury does, maybe even better than Dinner Party, and something I think a few other great episodes have in common, is the buzzword. Subversion. In this case, character subversion. This is where Dwight comes in. The Injury imagines a world where Dwight is still Dwight, but he's personable, a friend. This makes for one of the strangest rides in the show's run. Dwight is giving Pam cute nicknames, helping her put music on her MP3 player, being cordial with Jim. It leads to some of the absolute funniest moments in the show's history, like Jim spraying Dwight like a dog with a bottle of water from the front seat as he drives Dwight to the hospital. And I think that third element, subversion of character, plays really well into and relies on what I think is the final element of a perfect episode, and without a doubt one of the most important, heart.
I just want to say goodbye, okay?
Well, I'll be back. I mean,
Yes, I know, but it's gonna be different.
why?
It's just hard to explain.
The Office can at times be a cynical show. A show that often drives home the futility of middle-class office work, one that often views the middle class as this sort of inescapable trap, a show that has no problem being mean-spirited, and a show that doesn't always have something happy to say. It's a show that often finds, especially early on, its happy place in accepting life for what it is, instead of asking for more. There's obvious exceptions, and as a whole, I think the show does a great job of rising above all that and gets progressively more positive as the seasons fly by, for better or worse. But at its very best, it's a show about your work family, a show with a heart. The injury has heart, a heart it wears on its sleeve. In the middle of the episode, Pam realizes that she and Dwight are actually friends now, and the end of that little arc is when this happens.
Come here.
Oh, huggy hugs.
Or there's the moment where Michael strips off his audio gear and goes into the scanning room with Dwight, even if he in part just wants to get his foot in there. Or that weird moment where Jim is rushing Dwight to the hospital and doing his best to keep him awake and cognizant with that aforementioned spray bottle. For all of its conflict, absurdity, and well, more absurdity, The Office is a show that gives you people that feel real enough, nuanced enough, relatable enough to care about. But it's the moments where they care about each other that I think are much sweeter, that I think wrap the premise, the flaws, subversion up with a tight little bow and keep us, the audience, invested. Look, there's probably a dozen or so episodes that you could make a case for when it comes to a perfect Office episode. But I think The Injury is maybe the show's magnum opus, in part because it still manages to be about The Office, that place that brings all of these people together. I love Dinner Party, but Dinner Party always felt to me like a bit of an expedition, a spin-off episode into a different world, much like Beach Games, almost like an office field trip. The Injury doesn't have tiny TVs and Bowflexes to fall back on. The Injury is an episode about these people in this place. And I think that it's one of the best portraits of these people the writers and directors of the show ever painted. I'm quite glad, honestly, that all the talks of spin-offs and reboots of The Office never end up going anywhere. I saw one burned foot, and I don't think I'll ever love another burned foot quite as much ever again.
I stepped onto the grill and it clamped down on my foot. That's it. I don't see what's so hard to believe about that.
Well guys, that is it for today's episode of Nerdstalgic, and as always, if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button down below. If you haven't yet done so, also press subscribe. That way you won't miss anything I upload. Next to subscribe is a little bell. You can click on that to make sure you're actually notified when I upload. That's all little bell is for. Also, I have a few other episodes of this perfect episode series going. I have one for SpongeBob, one for The Simpsons, so you can check those out if you're interested in seeing more of this perfect episode series I've been doing. And now, really quickly, today's video is sponsored by Squarespace. They've been an amazing company to work with, mostly because I'm actually currently using their product. You'll see what I've been working on with Squarespace sometime this summer, but it is an amazing site builder. They have excellent customer support, amazing data tracking, concurrent social posting, meaning you can post something there and have it spread out across all of your social media platforms. The tools Squarespace gives you are easy to use, easy to understand, and most importantly, can create some really cool stuff. So if you go to squarespace.com, you can start your free trial today, and when you're ready to make your first purchase of a website or domain, you can use that link down below in the description, squarespace.com/nerdstalgic, to get 10% off your first order. And as always, guys, on your screen right now are 2 more episodes of Nerdstalgic. You can click on either of those to stay right here with me on this channel, and hopefully I will see you guys in the next video.